I put this on gallery view, so now I see pretty much everybody. All right, here we are, folks, and looks like we've got a really nice turnout. Welcome to our returning families. See a lot of familiar names, and welcome, of course, to our new incoming families, as well as my colleagues, several of whom will be on this call. Um, as an introduction, I'm Dave McCusker. I'm the MPH head of school. I'm here accompanied by a good number of my colleagues who have been working diligently in many, many areas, including preparation for the upcoming school year. And we're really excited about getting started, getting underway once again. Before we launch in, let me just mention a couple of things, a couple of housekeeping details. Everybody is on mute. It'd be great if we stayed on mute just so there aren't distractions. As I think you probably saw when you logged on, this session is being recorded. So for those folks in our community who weren't able to join us today, we'll be able to share that pretty quickly. The chat function, if you have a question that bubbles up during our conversation at any point, you can go ahead and use the chat function to ask that question. Your question or thoughts will go to the host for this meeting. That's either one of my two colleagues here, Katie Ray or Brian Shambhala, and they will gather up those questions and suggestions. We'll try to get to those as well. With that said, I want to thank a good number of people who took the time to read the social compact and the plan for the 2021-2022 year. Several of you sent forward some questions, and we asked for those. You provided some good questions, and we're going to be able to touch on, I think, all of what we received in advance of the meeting. So thanks for that. And then just as a reminder, this opening session is for all members of the community. Around 5:35 or so, we'll begin to wind this session down, and you'll be given an option of going into two breakout rooms, one for the lower school and the other for middle and upper school. And you'll have your choice, and I believe you'd be able to, if you wanted to move from one into the other, recognizing that many families have students in multiple divisions. So that ought to be, we'll get to that toward the end of this session. I think that's it for the housekeeping details. Again, I hope everyone's had a healthy and relaxing and enjoyable summer. I'll speak for myself. This summer has been a lot better than last summer, for sure. And we had found some time to break away at times, do some fun things, connect with family and friends, that sort of thing. So a bit more balanced than last summer. And yet we are also now, and have been for quite some time, laser focused on preparing for the upcoming school year. We're going to get into the health protocols that we outlined in the plan pretty quickly. But before we do, I just want to give you a sense of the activity that's been happening at MPH all summer. And I've got just a couple bullets to quickly highlight. We did run our summer programs this year at a different level than we were able to do last year. So we had many more campers. The experience was by and large very successful, and hats off to Rebecca Rohde and her team for pulling that off. Lots of our colleagues were engaged in various professional development opportunities during the course of the summer. So as usual, the professional ranks here were active with their own sort of training and gaining some new knowledge. One of the areas where we're excited about, but I would say many of my colleagues weren't terribly excited about, the intensive training, but we upgraded our Blackbaud system, so databases in various areas around school. It was a long time coming. We're really excited about the new potential, and yet several of my colleagues spent, 20 to 30 to 40 hours in training for that. But you're going to hear a bit more about that in the days and weeks ahead, because a lot of the information you'll be accessing will be coming through that new system. Of course, our admissions team is putting the finishing touches on our enrollment, and I think people will be pleased to know that we will start the year at probably 350 or so students, which represents another nice bump up in interest. There's also been a lot of program development. So in addition to professional development, a number of folks are working on enhancing and creating new curricular offerings. So good work happening there. Our staffing is, I think, complete at this point. I think we sent out the last agreement letter last week, and we're in good shape that way. We're really excited about the team that we've pulled together this year, including a lot of new members who bring all kinds of interesting strengths and interests. And then there's been some nice capital improvements taking place during the course of the summer. Some that are on an annual basis, like the dining room right now, the floor is being waxed and cleaned. We've made some nice improvements to this main facility. And if you've driven by MPH in the last, 2 or 3 weeks, you'll see a big green fence around the farmhouse. And that iconic building is getting a nice, a significant top to bottom renovation. So a lot of good things going on. And as I mentioned, a lot of prep for the upcoming year. We're doing some things that are a little bit different. We think a little bit better in terms of welcoming new students and families. So stay tuned for that. And internally, we've got a nice program developed for welcoming our new faculty. So again, we're really excited about this year. Just a quick look back at last year, and again, our returning families went through this experience with us. It was, I think, we all feel by and large a successful year, not without some significant challenges. I hope everyone had a chance to look at the 15-minute documentary we did, Making Pandemic History. And we think it's a really good reflection on what took place during the course of the year here last year. A lot of interesting perspectives shared. And for me, the bottom line is, and I think this is the reason for the success that we had tremendous partnership with our families, tremendous cooperation and support. And I can't tell you how much that's appreciated. And there are all kinds of experiences that we engaged in together. But I'll just highlight I think we had 5 days when we did testing for the entire community. And for every one of those experiences, we had well over 90% participation. So, that kind of partnership support is, it's unusual, maybe not at MPH. And I think it's largely the reason we were able to stay in session for the entire year. And at least when, when we did decide to transition to distance learning for certain reasons, we were able to do that well. And those strategies seem to also help us out in terms of identifying when it happens, some illness in the community. So it was a great year last year. And we are right now, as we look at the plan and the health protocols, there are, we're grateful that we did a lot of work last summer and last spring as we got ready for the upcoming year. That created for us in the social compact and the plan that we updated a really strong foundation for the starting point for this year. And so, again, that the work that took place in 2020, 2021 and leading up to it helped us really think about a lot of areas of school life, and we learned a lot of lessons. The circumstances from a health standpoint aren't absolutely identical, but they're very similar to last year. And our protocols are not exactly the same, because we learned some good lessons, and we learned them as a school. I think collectively too, we gained the benefit of a lot of experiences, certainly in this country and around the world, and along the way, some of the advice and guidance shifted a bit. So as we look ahead, and I want to focus a little bit on the social compact that you just received and the accompanying plan. That information is on our school's website, and we're gonna share a little bit about the new web page a little bit later. But I'm pleased that we're using our website as a tool, and maybe a little bit of a different way this year. But the compact that we put together, Elizabeth Perryman, who was the chair of the pandemic response team last year, and I would say was the sort of lead author for the plan last year, was the lead author again in terms of bringing the social compact and 21-22 plan up to date. And so big thanks to Elizabeth, who's working closely with Sean Tompkins, who is chairing what we're referring to this year as the health and safety team. So we were all familiar with the language pandemic response team last year. I think that was an appropriate title for that group, given last year's experience. We're now broadening the view a little bit and thinking about our mitigation strategies specifically for COVID and the Delta variant, coming under the banner of overall health and safety at MPH. So you'll begin to hear a little bit more about the health and safety team and Sean's leadership. But back to the document that we're going to be talking about today. I think we listed in some of our outreach and included in the social compact the different organizations, health organizations, government organizations that we're paying attention to, and when mandates come along and requirements come along, we're paying attention to those things. Dr. Shannon McGarry-Leggett, too, for returning families, that name will be familiar to you. Shannon was a trustee at MPH for many years. She just rotated off the board last spring, but she is a devoted member of this community, and lucky us, she is a leading epidemiologist. And we've been consulting with her as well over the course of the summer. And just so I don't forget it, I want to mention that on September 2nd, and you'll all receive information about this, we'll have another iteration of the MPH Conversations series, another session, and Dr. McGarry-Leggett will be leading that session and providing all of us with an update and some insights from her world. We also, no surprise, the Onondaga County Health Department has been very active in recent weeks with some good guidance for us. And there was a call actually this morning that 4 of our colleagues attended, and the topic was testing. And toward the end of my time, I'm going to ask Sean Tompkins to do a little debrief on what we learned from the county and their partnership with us in terms of testing protocols as we go forward. I will say that our experience with the Onondaga Department of Health has been excellent. Couldn't ask for more or better support from that group. And then, as I mentioned before, we've had a lot of active involvement with our families. So thank you to those of you who've been in touch. I also want to thank the leaders of the Parents Association who took an early look at our protocols and provided some good thoughts about additional information to include, some questions that they thought were going to be asked, or anticipate some questions that would be asked. So appreciate their help as well. So this summer, in addition to what I mentioned, I also want to just say, and we're going to hit upon this a couple times, we as a school believe strongly and want to encourage the benefits of the vaccination process and the vaccination for COVID. And those vaccinations became available to adults anyway back in February of last year. At this point, 96% of our employees are vaccinated. We're really pleased with that high rate of vaccination. And I would say the vast majority of eligible students are vaccinated as well. So from that standpoint, again, we believe in the science of the vaccination process. We're watching the experience of vaccinated and unvaccinated folks around the country, and just want to make it clear that we're encouraging and will support as vaccinations become available to younger people, and with the idea of booster shots and all the rest, we're going to do whatever we can to support that process. The Delta variant is clearly the issue, the virus that we're paying closest attention to right now. And it seems like we're getting some new information, or at least, some of what we're observing in terms of that virus and its, its characteristics all along the way. So we're keeping a close eye on all that we're learning there. In the social compact, we put front and center the mission and core values of our school. That continues to be our North Star. Whenever we get in a little bit of a sort of side conversation and maybe need a reminder about who we are and what we're doing, we always return to our mission statement. I just want to point that out to the community. That's very much, it's more than just sort of what words on a page. This is something that finds its way into our conversation often, and as do the core values. So just want to point that out. I also want to highlight the concept, the language in the social compact is, uses the concept of freely bound. We're sort of entering into this relationship. We have other choices. We know our families have choices and our students have choices. So we respect that a great deal. And I think there's a lot of power to this concept that we are willingly, as a member of the community, we're entering into this agreement on our own accord. So I thank you for that. We also have sort of our own ways of thinking about things, and with my colleagues, and I'm sure I've used it with other members of the community, we've got a little handle, which is that with all of our decision making, everything we think about with MPH, we're going to be responsible, resourceful, and reasonable. Responsible, clearly in this regard, is something that we have to be very responsible. We've got to take good care to attend to our first priority, which is the health and well-being of every member of this community. And so that's something that we will remain committed to. We also want to be reasonable. And as circumstances change and guidance change, we want to make sure that our protocols are reflecting where we are at a given time. So we will continue to be reasonable that way. I will share with everyone that as a starting point and starting point to the year, our posture is going to be more cautious than less. And just in terms of working with 350 students and family members and our colleagues and their family members, we believe that a slightly more cautious posture at the start is going to help us establish those protocols in a really firm and clear way. And it's going to be a lot easier to have that as the foundation for everything else, so that when we are able to make some modifications, we're doing so from that position of a more conservative, I guess, from a health standpoint, footing. And so if you have, or if one has the feeling, well, boy, maybe MPH is being a little too cautious in this regard at this time, you may well have that opinion about some of these protocols. And what I'm saying to you is most of that is by design, that we want to start on that more cautious footing as a starting point. And then finally, too, and it's the language is in our social compact, and I think in one or two of our emails, the idea that we are definitely all in this together. That's how we feel about things at the school. We've got, I'm going to say, approximately 40% of our students who will not be vaccinated. All students under the age of 12 will not be vaccinated. And so our behavior is going to reflect what we believe is in the best interest of each of our students and the entire community. Again, that is more of a philosophical kind of concept, or those concepts are giving you a sort of glimpse of the way we think about things. But now you know, and we think it's important as our partners that you're aware of the way we're thinking about this. So now I'm going to go into a little bit of the specific protocols. I'm not going to touch on every one of them, but just the ones that I think are probably top of mind for our families. The first one is that I'm going to point to is the daily health assessment. And again, for returning families, you're quite familiar with what we did last year. We used the Magnus app, and we used the Magnus app, and we asked that families complete that daily health assessment every day. That's a lot to remember. It's a lot to do every day. On our end, we were fielding all of those results, and then we were doing quite a bit of follow-up. We just put up on the screen the daily health assessment. I can't say this word, attestation. In other words, we're going to ask that you attest to these checked areas. And so we're not going to ask families to complete the daily Magnus app where you sign in every single day. And again, some of this is guidance that that has been provided to us. Instead, what we're asking, and we actually created this in a format that you can print. I don't know if your family is like ours, but when our kids were younger, we would print things and put it on the fridge. If you're the kind of family that does that sort of thing, or by the door, this is a good checklist for you when you think about coming to MPH, bringing your child to MPH. And it's just the kind of key points. Face coverings. We are going to wear face coverings whenever we are in the building. We're going to wear them in the hallways. We're going to wear them in classrooms, in offices. If you're alone in an office, just so you know, and you're alone in the office, you're not expecting anyone, we're going to say you can take your face covering down. But as soon as anyone walks into an office, anywhere there's two or more people, people will be wearing face coverings. When we go outside, that's going to be a different story. We may flesh that out a little bit in our breakout sessions. But back to the daily health assessment and what we're asking you to attest to. Face coverings, each person is responsible for having a face covering. Personal refillable water bottles. This might not seem to some like a real absolute, but it is for us. We want to make sure all of us, we're all staying hydrated. The use of the water fountains is not available to anyone. We do have hydration stations, so places where students and adults can fill their water bottles, but please make it a priority that students and all adults that we have a refillable water bottle. And then we're saying, don't come to campus with any symptoms of COVID-19. And I'm not going to read this. It's in the materials that you have. You've seen it. But this is what we're asking you to sort of sign off on. And then if you or your child test positive for COVID-19, we are continuing with that with the COVID nurse, email address, and as the place where if there are questions or concerns or what have you that are related to COVID-19 or the Delta variant or any kind of COVID-related issue, using the COVID nurse email address is the best route there. And then if we detect some symptoms in a child, we're going to be in touch with you pretty quickly, parents and guardians. And I think we're also asking for an emergency backup number or two so that we can make sure that we have someone to contact if we need that. All right, thanks, Brian. And let's see. So I mentioned face coverings. Also want to mention lunch. Lunch last year was we were very particular about where we ate our meals, how those meals arrived to students, so on and so forth. And it was essentially a delivery system every day. Working with the guidelines that we have right now, we are working, and when I say we, it's a small subset of our administrative leadership team, but we believe we're going to be able to use the dining room to allow students and adults to go into the dining room to serve themselves a meal of their choice. And then we believe what's going to happen is they'll take those meals and either go back to an advisory classroom or a classroom, some classroom or outdoors, but we'll have designated areas where students and adults are able to eat. But the big sort of hope here is that we won't need to deliver meals to every student every day, and that students will have the opportunity to come into the dining room and create their own meal. I suspect that will be a welcomed change. Again, working through the details there, but that's what we're working on. With respect to visitors, we're gonna start the year as we did last year and for most of the year, where visitors we're gonna really keep the number of visitors to a bare minimum. There are times when people need to come on in and do something with us. We'll have a clear policy around checking in, completing a daily health assessment form, and we'll have a host for visitors, parents, and other visitors, so that nobody is unaccompanied walking around the school. We want to make sure that we're minimizing as much as we can any kind of outside interaction or the potential for the spread of any kind of illness. Cohorts and mixing, similar to last year, but it's got a different sort of emphasis again this year. We are going to do as much as we can to avoid any kind of mixing of cohort groups. Now, in the lower school, that is something that's much more, it's much easier to sort of manage because those classes are self-contained. And so we're going to really do everything we can to keep those cohorts for the younger grades really kind of distinct and clear. And that is important also largely because that group is unvaccinated. And we also know that with the Delta variant, it is having a different effect on younger people as well. So we're going to do everything we can to keep those groups really kind of separated. In the middle school and upper school, we're going to also do what we can to keep those cohorts as free from mixing as possible. However, there are different offerings where different grade levels are involved, and so there will be some of that. And I suspect Matt and Fred will be able to maybe share some thoughts on that topic in the breakout group. With respect to distance learning and simulcasting, I think, well, I know everyone has received some information from the school where we are putting forward some criteria for the decision or sort of request to either engage in simulcasting or distance learning. I just want a little footnote here. We were very fortunate last summer, to be able to invest in our technology infrastructure in the way that we did, and to outfit all of our classrooms with the equipment needed for this option. We used it quite a bit during the course of last year. I think there were 2 or 3 times when the entire school shifted to distance learning, where we were all using our technology resources to continue with the education. And then simulcasting too was something that different students were able to participate in when it made sense to do so. We were much more sort of open with the kind of, whatever criteria that we had in place. It was really somewhat open-ended because the premium was on maximum flexibility for all of our students and families. And while we would like to always continue with that, we also feel like we're in a place now where the options exist, but there should be a good reason for why a student might engage that way. And all that will require will be a conversation with your division head, explanation about what's going on, and there'll be a conversation there and a decision made. But the default position for us is being in school, on campus. And so that's the orientation we have with that. I'm going to mention testing right now. Here's my thumbnail sketch, and Sean Tompkins, if you'll join in a second. But my understanding is the county is going to be able to support testing in schools. My understanding is that for the first couple of weeks, we will have that available to us. It will be smaller percentages, I think sort of 10 to 15%, a randomized selection of members of the community. And there'll be at least a couple of weeks. And then I think the county is going to see what that yields and make some decisions at that point going forward. Sean, beyond the thumbnail that I provided, and if I made any mistakes, please correct the record. But what other thoughts can you share?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you. The call this morning with the county health department was specific to testing. What we know so far is the county is going to conduct weekly testing for about 10 to 20% of the school population, including students and staff, for the first couple of weeks of school. And then they're going to kind of dial that up or dial it down based on those results and based on the kind of the community spread. One more kind of key point here is the tests will be PCR tests. Some give and take there. They are very accurate tests, but they're not rapid tests. So we don't have those results immediately. We don't have them for probably 24 hours. But the takeaway there is they are extremely accurate tests. And then just one more thing with testing. When everyone hears PCR test, they all think of that Q-tip that attempts to tickle your brain through your nose. That is not the case. These are saliva-based tests. They are self-administered tests. We will hand the person that's getting tested like a little Q-tip. They'll kind of swab the inside of their cheek and put it back in a cap, and the test goes to a lab and kind of gets taken care of from there. And then we see those results again, hopefully within 24 hours or so. So pretty easy process. And the only other thing that you should be aware of is because we're going to flex, those 10 to 20% test pools based on our needs from the county, we're going to ask for a universal consent form from everybody, so we can just not have any interruptions with education. We don't have to bother anybody at home. We can just have a universal consent. So if we need to pull some people as they're coming off the bus or coming to the door to test them to make good on that 10 to 20%, we have the ability to do that very fast and just kind of move on with the day from there. Myself and Elizabeth will be available in the breakouts after this for any other questions, but I'll leave it alone for now. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sean. And I just did a quick scan of the notes that I wanted to reference during my time here. And I got two that I didn't connect with. One is rather particular, but it comes as advice from Shannon McGarry, and she encourages all of us to, when the flu shot becomes available, for us to take advantage of the flu shot. And according to her, and I trust her opinion and her insights on this, she makes clear that the flu shot is one of the best ways to protect people from the severe illness that can occur if they do contract COVID-19. So that's something we want to encourage. I also kind of skipped over the web page, and Brian, I don't know if you're able to put that screenshot up in front of folks and maybe say a word or two about the use of that page.
Sure, hang on one second. We'll get the screen up. So we changed the web presence a little just to make it easy to find any kind of relevant COVID updates. So if you go to the homepage, you'll see the blue box that has COVID updates, and there's a little flyout, and you can click there. You can also just use the address, which is our main address, mphschool.org/COVID. That'll take you right to the page. Right now, it had a link for tonight's meeting, and it also has the social compact, and it has the daily attestation, which you can print from there too if you need the file. I would just get used to checking that page. We're kind of going to use it as a resource. The recording of this will be up on it tomorrow. Anytime we have testing or important dates coming up, it'll be at the top of that page in the update section, and just kind of training people to check there first. I think it'll just make it a little easier to find things.
Great. Thanks, Brian. And now we're gonna be breaking out into two groups. And I don't know if there's a need for an explanation on how this happens. Katie or Brian, or is it going to be self-evident with a couple of?
We're going to set it up right now. I also have a message just so people know that Nurse Christine will be in the lower school breakout room if people have questions, and then she's always open for calls or emails too. Just wanted to pass that message along. But we're setting up the breakout rooms right now. There will be a lower school breakout room and then a middle and upper school room. And you can select which room you want to go into. It'll appear on your screen in a few moments. And we'll be monitoring and make sure everything works.
Great. Okay. Well, I am then going to be signing off just to say thanks to my colleagues for your good prep and work for the school year and also for this session. And just a big thank you to our families. I look forward to seeing you during arrivals. I'll be out with my new fluorescent vest, helping to manage the crosswalk. It's one of my favorite parts of the day. But I'll look forward to seeing all of our students back and connecting with our families as well. So thanks. And all right.